What's going on, everyone? This is Walkers92 at the helm once again, and today we're talking about Star Fox for the Nintendo Switch 2.
Good luck.
Now, I have to be honest, when Nintendo first announced this game, I was disappointed. Not because I don't love Star Fox, quite the opposite. Star Fox is one of my favorite Nintendo franchises. It's a series I've grown up with, and one I've replayed countless times, and one that, if you follow Nintendo for any length of time, you know that has never fully received the love it deserves. So when the company finally announced a brand new Star Fox game after almost 10 years, I don't think anybody expected it to be another retelling of Star Fox 64. And that's where my frustration came from, because this is now the fourth time we've been told the same story. For those who might not know the franchise's history, let's quickly rewind. Back in 1993, Nintendo released the original Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. At the time, it was revolutionary. Thanks to the Super FX chip, the console could suddenly render real-time 3D polygon graphics at home. It is primitive by today's standard, but back then it felt like looking into the future. That game introduced us to Fox McCloud, Falco Lombardi, Peppy Hare, and Slippy Toad as they journeyed across the Lylat system to stop the evil scientist Andros. Interestingly, there was also a direct sequel planned for the Super Nintendo, simply titled Star Fox 2. It was originally cancelled so Nintendo could focus on the Nintendo 64, but eventually saw the light of day years later on the SNES Classic and Nintendo Switch Online. Today, it stands as a fascinating what-if for the series, experimenting with ideas that will quietly influence later games. 1997, however, brought something different. Nintendo released what many, including myself, still consider one of the greatest arcade shooters ever made, Star Fox 64. It wasn't really a sequel. It was a complete reimagining of the original Super Nintendo game. Same characters, same premise, same journey to Venom, but this time everything was bigger, faster, and infinitely more cinematic. It introduced branching paths, full voice acting, memorable boss battles, secret routes, medals, and a campaign players still return to decades later. It's also responsible for some of the most iconic lines in gaming history.
Do a barrel roll! Can't let you do that, Star Fox.
Even people who've never played Star Fox have probably heard those lines somewhere. Fast forward to 2011 and the series revisited that same story again with Star Fox 64 3D on the Nintendo 3DS. That remake stayed incredibly faithful to the Nintendo 64 original while modernizing the visuals and controls. But between Star Fox 64 and its 3DS remake, the franchise actually went through something of an identity crisis. In 2002, we got Star Fox Adventures, a game that originally started life as Rare's Dinosaur Planet before the Star Fox characters were incorporated. It shifted the focus away from aerial combat and towards a Zelda-like action adventure. While it certainly has its fans, it never captured what made Star Fox Star Fox. 2005 brought Star Fox Assault, developed by Namco, which felt much closer to a return to form. It brought back the classic R-Ring gameplay while experimenting with on-foot combat. It didn't always get the balance right, but at least it felt like the series was trying to evolve rather than stand still. Next came Star Fox Command on the Nintendo DS, which once again took the series in a completely different direction with its strategy-inspired gameplay and multiple endings. Some of those endings were, let's just say, questionable. And then in 2016, the series tried something different again. Star Fox Zero, co-developed by Platinum Games. Zero sat somewhere between a remake and a sequel, never quite settling on either. It revisited the same story while redesigning missions and introducing brand new mechanics built around the Wii U gamepad. And truthfully, I still think Star Fox Zero had some genuinely fantastic ideas. Its boss encounters were creative, its transformations were clever. Visually, it looked fantastic for the Wii U, but unfortunately, every conversation about the game always goes back to one thing: the controls. Nintendo became so committed to the dual screen concept that it forgot the most important rule of game design. If the controls aren't enjoyable, players won't stick around long enough to appreciate everything else. And that's a shame, because underneath those gimmicks was a genuinely good Star Fox game. And now, 10 years later, Nintendo has returned once again, simply calling this game Star Fox. No subtitle, No number, just Star Fox. And initially, I couldn't understand why. Why return to Corneria? Why fight Andros again? Why tell the same story for a fourth time instead of finally giving Fox McCloud an entirely new adventure? But the more I played, the more I started thinking about Nintendo's bigger picture. And I don't think this remake is just about longtime fans. I think it's about the future of the franchise. Think about it. Earlier this year, Fox made a substantial appearance in Nintendo's latest animated movie, the Super Mario Galaxy movie. The company has continued merchandising the franchise, and Fox remains a mainstay of Super Smash Bros. Series. And now, during the Nintendo Switch 2's launch window, Nintendo revisits arguably the most beloved game in the series. I don't think that's a coincidence. I believe Nintendo wants Star Fox to become one of its pillar franchises again, not just in gaming, but across movies, products, theme parks, and everything else in between. And if that's the long-term plan, then suddenly, this remake makes a lot more sense. Because if you're introducing Fox McCloud to an entirely new generation of players, where else do you start? You start with Star Fox 64 because it's still the blueprint. It's the game that defined the franchise. So yes, I went into this remake frustrated, but I came out understanding exactly why it was made. Now, whether it actually justifies existing, that's an entirely different conversation. So let's talk about the game itself. Once again, you step into the role of Fox McCloud, leader of Team Star Fox, alongside ace pilot Falco Lombardi, veteran strategist Peppy Hare, and the team's genius mechanic Slippy Toad. Fox is contracted by General Pepper to stop Andros, who has launched an invasion from Venom and threatens the entire Lilac system. Your mission is simple. Chart a course across the Lilac system, fight your way through Andros' forces, reach Venom, and put an end to Andros once and for all. How you get there, however, depends entirely on how you play. But we'll come back to that a little later. The first thing I want to talk about is what's actually changed this time. The biggest change is the presentation, and the first thing you notice the moment you boot up the game is the visual style. This goes well beyond Star Fox 64 with sharper textures. The visual identity has been completely reinterpreted. Instead of leaning into more stylized cartoon-like look of previous entries, this remake pushes much closer towards realism. The characters have more detailed fur and more expressive facial animations, and the world itself feels far more grounded while still retaining that unmistakable Nintendo charm. I'll be honest, at first I wasn't completely sold on it. Some of the characters' designs felt like they were drifting a little too close to the uncanny valley. They looked familiar enough that you instantly recognized them, but different enough that it took me a while to adjust. But the more I played, the more those designs grew on me, and eventually it clicked. These aren't trying to be realistic versions of Star Fox 64. They're trying to capture the look Nintendo originally imagined back in 1993. If you go back and look at the promotional artwork for the original Super Nintendo game, you notice these characters actually resemble those illustrations far more than any previous Star Fox game. Whether Nintendo continues with this art direction remains to be seen, but I have to give it credit to the developers where it's due. It was a bold, creative decision, and it's one I think has paid off. The second major change comes in how the story is presented. If you play the N64 original, you'll remember the story was incredibly simple. Aside from the opening text scroll, General Pepper's mission briefing, and the radio chatter during each stage, almost everything else was left to your imagination. This remake takes a very different approach. Rather than relying almost entirely on gameplay to tell its story, the game features over an hour of fully directed cutscenes that flesh out both the characters and the wider Star Fox universe. And honestly, this is one of the remake's biggest strengths. The additional screen time gives every member of Team Star Fox room to breathe. Fox is no longer just a confident young ace pilot. You get to see the weight he carries as the son of James McCloud. He's confident, sometimes overly confident, but beneath that bravado is somebody trying to live up to his father's legacy while carrying the financial burden that was left behind. Peppy becomes much more than the veteran shouting advice over radio. He's the mentor trying to guide Fox into becoming the leader he knows he can be. Falco is exactly what fans expect: brash, arrogant, competitive. always convinced he's the best pilot in the room and just capable enough to back it up. Beneath his cold exterior lies a loyal teammate. And then there's Slippy. He's still the team's brilliant mechanic. He's still the lovable liability who somehow finds himself calling for help more than anybody else. But these new scenes finally give him the opportunity to be more than just comic relief. The relationships between the crew feel much more believable because we actually spend time with them outside combat. Another thing I really appreciated was how these cutscenes give proper context to the branching paths. In the original Star Fox 64, discovering the alternate routes often felt like stumbling across hidden secrets. Here, those same branches feel naturally integrated into the narrative. It gives more context to why you're taking a different path through the LiDAR system, making replaying the campaign feel more rewarding than ever. Gameplay-wise, Nintendo has shown remarkable restraint. This is almost a one-for-one recreation of Star Fox 64, and honestly, that was exactly the right decision in this moment. The R-Ring handles just as responsively as you remember. Barrel rolls are still satisfying. Boosting, braking, threading your way through enemy fire, shooting your shots with lasers and charge shots. It all comes back instantly. It's also worth mentioning the Landmaster and Blue Marine both return here and still offer a nice break from the usual R-Ring action. Trading flight for tank treads or submarine controls, even briefly, changes the rhythm of a run and gives certain routes their own distinct identity. If you love Star Fox 64, you'll feel right at home within minutes. The biggest improvements come from presentation rather than mechanics. Take Conera for example. Structurally, it's almost identical to the Nintendo 64 version. Artistically, it's on another level. This time, you generally feel like you're flying through a city that's losing a war. Buildings have been reduced to rubble. Smoke fills the skyline. Conerian fighters desperately trying to hold back Andros forces while explosions erupt around you. The battlefield feels alive in a way the original simply couldn't achieve. The same applies to Meteor. The asteroid field feels enormous. The lighting, the green tint, the sheer scale of everything around you creates an atmosphere that the old hardware simply couldn't deliver. What's most impressive is that Nintendo hasn't really added much new content to these levels. They've realized the original vision. It feels less like redesigning Star Fox 64 and more like finally delivering the vision Nintendo probably imagined back in 1997, if the hardware had allowed it. Now, does that automatically make every artistic decision better? Not necessarily. Without getting into spoilers, there are a handful of moments later in the game where I actually think Nintendo 64 version still comes out on top. Certainly, game encounters had a simplicity and style that this remake doesn't quite capture. That's not to say that they're bad. Far from it, because sometimes less really is more. Overall, the visuals are absolutely fantastic. This is easily one of, if not the best looking game Nintendo has released on the Nintendo Switch 2 so far. And perhaps even more importantly, it runs beautifully. A rock solid 60 frames per second, no noticeable slowdown, no distracting performance issues. It simply feels perfect. There is one gameplay criticism: visual feedback during boss battles. In the original 64 version, every successful hit was immediately obvious because bosses flashed whenever your attacks connected. Here, the feedback is much more subtle. I suspect that was done to preserve the game's more realistic presentation, but from a gameplay perspective, I actually prefer the original approach. It made reading combat much clearer. It's only a small complaint, but it's something I noticed during my playthrough. If you're expecting brand new levels or dramatically expanded a campaign, temper your expectations. This remake isn't trying to reinvent Star Fox 64. It's trying to perfect it. And for the most part, it succeeds. Now, let's talk about what doesn't quite work for me. Because as much as I've enjoyed this remake, it's not perfect. The biggest criticism I have is the voice acting. And now, before anybody misunderstands what I'm saying, let me be clear. The new voice acting is not bad. In fact, it's actually very good. The performances are professional, the dialogue is well delivered, and the actors do an admirable job bringing these characters to life. Especially considering now they have over an hour of cinematic cutscenes to carry. However, Star Fox 64's original voice acting is one of the defining reasons that the game has stuck with players for decades. Those lines I mentioned earlier, the ones that have become iconic within gaming, weren't necessarily the most technically impressive performances, but they had a unique charm and personality that have stood the test of time. The dialogue in this remake has been adjusted to fit the new cast, and for the most part, they do an excellent job. Ironically, I actually think these are technically stronger performances. They're cleaner, more natural, and more cinematic, but personally, I feel some of these original personality has been lost. The best example of this is the Star Wolf crew, who oppose Star Fox at certain points of the game. Their new performance is good, but it simply doesn't capture the same confidence, menace, and swagger that made the original so memorable.
I can't let you do that, Star Fox.
Andros has ordered us to take you down.
Happy! Long time no see! Andros' enemy is my enemy!
Can't let you do that, Star Fox.
Andros sent us. He doesn't mind if I make a mess.
Happy! Long time no see!
Emperor Andros' enemy is my enemy.
The cadence and delivery and the attitude just don't quite hit the same for me. And at the end of the day, this comes down to personal preference. Some players will probably prefer these newer interpretations, while others, like myself, will always have a soft spot for the original performances. Beyond the main campaign, Nintendo has also introduced a brand new challenge mode. At first glance, it might seem like a fairly straightforward addition, but I actually think it's one of the smartest new features in the game. Each stage presents you with a series of objectives. For example, on Corneria, you might be challenged to score over 150 hits, defeat a particular enemy within a strict time limit, or complete another specific objective. Once you've completed those challenges, an even tougher expert set becomes available. What I really appreciate about this mode is that it simply isn't about adding more content for its own sake. Instead, it teaches mastery. The more time you spend with these challenges, the more you begin to understand enemy placement, item location, optimal routes, and scoring opportunities. It encourages players to truly learn each level inside out. It's difficult, very difficult, but you're going to spend hours trying to complete everything. But it's also incredibly rewarding. If you're the type of player who loves chasing medals and perfecting your runs, you're going to have an amazing time with this mode. Or an extremely frustrating one. The choice is yours. The multiplayer mode has seen a significant overhaul. Rather than just recreating the original versus mode, Nintendo has built a 4v4 online experience in which one team controls Star Fox while the other controls Star Wolf. The multiplayer is spread across 3 different maps, each with its own objectives. Corneria is a large-scale battlefield where eliminating enemy players and assisting your allied forces earns points. While control points appear throughout the match, that becomes the primary objective. Sector Y adopts a capture the flag style format, where both teams compete to intercept a space pirate transporting valuable cargo. Ficina changes things again, asking players to collect valuable resources from a special meteor while simultaneously fighting off the opposing team. One feature I particularly enjoyed is the power-up system. Flying through the item box grants temporary upgrades such as force fields, enhanced lasers, bombs, and missiles. It adds a layer of unpredictability to every match and gives the multiplayer that Mario Kart flavor. I honestly had far more fun with this mode than I expected. Whether it has the longevity to keep players engaged for months or years remains to be seen. There's no extensive ship customization or progression system, but what is here is thoroughly enjoyable, especially when playing with friends. The game also includes game share support, allowing players across both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 to play together. Combined with the new game chat functionality, which maps your facial expressions onto Star Fox characters to create animated avatars, it's another example of Nintendo added its own unique flavor to the online experience. So, what do I ultimately think of Star Fox? I spent hours with this remake and I genuinely struggle to put it down. I think that's because Nintendo has successfully preserved what made Star Fox 64 so special in the first place. The campaign is still wonderfully replayable. A single run takes only about 40 minutes to an hour, but the branching routes, hidden secrets, medals, and now challenge mode constantly encourage you to jump back in for just one more run. Add to that expanded storytelling, impressive production values, gorgeous visuals, and polished gameplay, and you end up with what I believe is the definitive version of Star Fox 64. When this remake was announced, I wanted something completely new. I wanted Nintendo to move the series forward. Funny enough, after playing it, I now understand why this remake exists. This is about reintroducing Star Fox to a new generation of players and creating a solid foundation for the future, not simply revisiting the past. Now that the foundation is finally in place, I have one hope. Nintendo, please do not tell the story again. You've created what I believe is the definitive version of Star Fox 64. Take these characters, take this gameplay, take these production values, and finally give Star Fox an entirely new adventure. If this remake marks the beginning of a new era for Fox McCloud and his team, I couldn't be happier. I wholeheartedly recommend Star Fox on Nintendo Switch 2. Whether you're experiencing this adventure for the very first time or returning to Corneria after decades away, I genuinely believe this is the best way to experience one of Nintendo's greatest arcade shooters. Don't forget to like, comment, follow, and subscribe. This is Workers92, signing out.